If you have a Hamilton song on your playlist, then you are one of the millions of people enjoying this smash hit musical. And if you don't have a Hamilton song on your playlist, then you are missing out on one of the most progressive musicals of all time. To make sure we're all on the same page, Hamilton follows the life of Alexander Hamilton, one of our nation's founding fathers. As we meet him as a young boy and an immigrant coming to the country, he uses his incredible wit and knowledge to work his way up through the ranks until he becomes one of the most powerful men of the time. Now, you may think that this story is told through typical musical theater stylings, but it is actually told through hip-hop and R&B, incorporating the hottest musical trends of today's modern society to show how far America has come. So what about this show worked its way into the hearts of musical theater lovers and those that aren't usually fans? Hamilton took a unique approach that changed the course of Broadway and the world forever. With today's society, minority populations are increasing, along with the media coverage they are receiving from the events happening across the globe. Hamilton's purpose was to tell the story of the founding of our country with a cast that represents what our country looks like now. We are in an era that has a demand for great change, and Hamilton sets the bar sky high. Coming from someone that has a theater background, I have seen time and time again where minorities and people of color do not receive accurate casting, and it was the casting of Hamilton that first took the world by storm. Then, as our political climate started to heat up in regards to the current presidential election of 2016, a story about the voice of the American people is just what the world needed to see. Today, I am going to talk about the importance of this show in terms of inclusive casting, how art imitates life, and how this show proved that anyone was allowed to take a stand for what they believed in. This show not only became a Broadway hit, but became an important lesson to anyone who watched it and began to make people think about the foundation of which our country was built. When the show was first cast, it was the diversity of the show that first took people by storm, by casting a completely people of color cast. In an interview with Lin-Manuel Miranda, the writer of the show, he told the New York Times, "This is a story about America then, told by America now, and we want to eliminate any distance." The point of this casting was to continue to highlight points of the show such as the American dream. While everyone has access to said dream, the impact of seeing this story being told by people of color is truly remarkable. It opens up the idea that the dream of the American dream and makes it more attainable to anyone, especially younger people of color, when they see people like them succeeding. The story mainly focuses on Alexander Hamilton. And in a speech before a performance of Hamilton done at the White House, Barack Obama said this: "With a cast as diverse as America itself, including the outstandingly talented woman, this show reminds us that this nation was built by more than just a few great men, and that it is an inheritance that belongs to all of us." This quote perfectly encapsulates how important it was to have the show be cast the way it was. To quote a song from the show, every performer on that stage was young, scrappy, and hungry to bring to life this very important piece of art. And while it was the show's inclusive cast that first grabbed audiences' attention, it was how the show adapted to the world around it that continued to hold audiences captivated. One of the first examples of Hamilton adapting to the world took place after the tragic Pulse nightclub shooting in 2016. Katie Riley for the Time USA wrote, "The entire awards show will be dedicated to victims of the nightclub shooting," after reporting that the cast would not be using its muskets for the Tony Award performance. This spoke to how the show truly was an extension of the American people. The show was meant to unify us as one, and by dropping the muskets in honor of the victims, it continued to do this. Another example of Hamilton moving with the times and being progressive was when the actor who played Aaron Burr delivered a statement to Mike Pence after he came to see the show later in 2016. He said, "We, sir, we are the diverse America who are alarmed and anxious that your new administration will not protect us, our planet, our children, our parents, or defend us and uphold our inalienable rights. We truly hope that this show has inspired you to uphold our American values and to work on behalf of all of us." This was a scary time in our political climate, and a Broadway show speaking out against American politics was unheard of. But Hamilton was the perfect show to do so. The show continued to wow audiences, while also teaching younger people about the history of our country and what the core beliefs were about. Art has always been able to inspire, but Hamilton was special. It helped people grow and learn as a whole opposed to a separate. After the statement to Mike Pence, the show did not stop its political work. The show itself is a political statement about how we all must live aside one another in a world that is wide enough. This lyric from the show is more relevant today more than ever. The show continues to imitate life. Daniel Kennedy, an author from the American Journal of Pharmaceutical Education, wrote, "Demonstrating empathy is an important skill to leaders to acquire and develop." He says this in regards to the song, It's Quiet Uptown. After this past year, with events such as the protest of the popular Black Lives Matter movement, this speaks directly to our world leaders, how they can empathize with some of the pain that the American population is going through. Hamilton's made its impact on the world. With the entirety of Broadway shutting down, I imagine it will come back with a force stronger than ever, and it will be interesting to see what they say. Overall, Hamilton has done amazing things across the board. Not only has it given more representation of actors and actresses of color, but has unified America by telling the story of America with what it looks like now. It has continued to unify people by showing that the show is adaptable to change, and it represents you, no matter what your race, sexual orientation, sex, or religion. Finally, it continues to teach everyone who watches it a variety of lessons. I leave you with this, a lyric from the final song of the show. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?